Okay, amazing. Okay, we'll just take a little breath, just to ground, to land in this space together. Deep breath in through the nose. And first, whether with your eyes, that's an ambulance. I was just about to say, allow whatever is going on in your environment right now to make contact with you. Whether you have your eyes open or eyes closed, doesn't matter, but anything, the touch of the air on your skin, the sounds, the touch of the seat beneath you, the temperature of the fabric or the material, the points at which it's supporting you, any point at which you can feel something external to yourself. And from there, see if you can hone in on the exact point where something else meets you. Maybe play around with whatever point you desire. Play around with moving inside the body and feeling the outside in, and then moving outside the body and feeling what it's like for the outside to touch you. Just go back and forth, playing with the boundaries of where you are, who you are. And take a deep breath. And with our amazing little spidey senses, see if you can send them out and locate the walls that are surrounding you. A judgment of how far they are away. Start with the one closest to you, as that'll be easiest. And to see if you can notice the distance between you and the wall. Then move to one further away, especially behind your head. If you can locate anything behind your head, it might not be a wall, might just be another piece of furniture or another person even. Not on this call, that would be creepy, but one day if anyone ever listens to these, there might be someone behind them. And just locate the boundaries, the walls around you, the safety of where you are. Allow your body to just acclimatize itself to this moment, to its surroundings, to your environment. If your eyes are closed, you can feel free to open them and allow the same to happen with your eyes. To visually allow the environment to make contact with you and that information to be processed into awareness of where you are. If you land on anything pleasurable, textures, colors, maybe movement, you can stay there for a little while before you move on. Whenever you're ready, whenever feels good, make contact with the screen, with us here together. Take a deep breath. And here we are.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So I'll ask you first, is there anything alive for you right now that you want to speak aloud?
Yeah, I was having a little think about what would feel natural to talk about on the call today. And there was a couple of things, but the biggest one that's coming up for me right now is how I've noticed this idea, and I've felt it before in the past, but I don't feel it anymore, about how as someone who's working with others, as a coach or whatever, there's almost this idea that you have to somehow be perfect, or your life has to be perfect in order to be able to support other people with theirs. And I just want to talk about that because, as you already know, Alex, I've been having a particularly challenging time recently. Lots of change, lots of getting sick, lots of questioning my path and all these things. And yet still I'm working with my one-on-one clients and being able to serve them just as well as I have done at any other point in my life. And I think it's really just important to dispel that myth about having to be continually perfect or sorted somehow, as if that's possible.
Yeah, you're only allowed if you can come through the door with this certain entry list of requirements of you've got your shit together in all ways, then you're allowed to serve your clients, then you're allowed to help other people.
Yeah, and I think if anything, it's actually, from my perspective, it's actually more powerful for others to see that you can be doing things you love, running a business, working with people, earning money, even if you're not living an eternal summer or eternal spring. And the idea that that's actually natural, I think if we go down this route of having to portray that we're always sorted, we're always great, everything in our lives is always amazing, that is actually really unhelpful. It's really unhealthy, because when we then work with people and their lives are not perfect all the time, which is true for every single human being and every animal or plant life, like nature shows us that there is no kind of static sameness. There is like highs and lows. And I think it's actually, if we're portraying the idea that everything's perfect all the time and our clients are then not experiencing that, then they can feel like something's wrong with them or that they should be able to attain that. And I think that ends in them, people being put on pedestals and that kind of thing, which is then really unhealthy. So yeah, it's just been a really interesting one for me to watch how, my life can be disintegrating in certain areas. And yet when I get on a call with a client, like I'm just here. Like it's none of that is relevant in that moment. And just noticing how it really, really, truly does not impact my ability to be present with somebody, listen to them, reflect back to them, ask them great questions. Like it's, how could it?
We, as we had an experience on our last call where we coach each other. One goes first, one goes second. And you coached me first, and I totally was a mess on my call, not even barely able to vocalize anything, get out a sentence or have any sort of coherent thought. But then following that, I had to pull myself together and coach you. And it probably wasn't the best I've ever coached in my life, but it wasn't I was able to do that. I was able to pull myself together. So I do think, and I think there's something so sneaky in the coaching realm about, we've removed the label of perfection and replaced it with the label of alignment. And it's like, okay, if you are not in perfect alignment, if everything in your life is not aligned in one way or another, then you can't serve people, or you can't show up, or you can't do this. And nothing in my life was aligned that day. Probably nothing much in your life feels that super aligned at the moment for you. And yet you're still with your clients, they're still paying you. It's all still going on.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we would get into this, and I'm sure some people are in this place of feeling like they can't begin until these things are sorted out, or feeling like you're not ready because your own life is not looking a certain way. But if that is the truth, if that becomes the truth for someone, then they will just never start, right? Like they will just never start, because what will happen, and I've seen this in my own business sort of in the earlier stages, is like, you know, we go through these natural cycles of good times and then harder times. And it was like, oh, okay, in the good times it's all great, and then in the harder times it's like, I can't do this, I need to pull it all down, I need to close everything. Yeah, it's just wild. Like we just never begin, or we begin and then we stop, and begin and then we stop. And I think there's like a fine line. It just feels important here to say that, like, if you as the space holder are really struggling, there's nothing wrong with taking a break and like paring back a little bit. I mean, I haven't taken on any new clients at all when we're in July this year because of this reason. Like, I haven't had the energy for new clients, for doing much of anything apart from serving my current clients. So I think it's like just important to bring in that thing, like, this is not a call to, you know, push through or ignore your signals to take a break. But
and there's a lot to be said for regulating your own nervous system. I mean, you can't, there's a phrase that I hear all the time on my course at the moment, which is, there needs to be at least one regulated nervous system in the room, and it had better be yours. But it doesn't mean the same thing in terms of like something to seek. Like, regulating your own nervous system can literally mean taking breaths in, and you can regulate yourself more thoroughly in 3 minutes than you can necessarily do it. It's not a constant state. You know, you don't reach perfection or reach alignment or reach regulation and stay there forever. It's a constant movement.
Oh, I love that, because then that gives permission, doesn't it? Because I'm glad you said that, because someone could hear this and be like, okay, I have to have my nervous system regulated all the time. And like, we know it changes like literally moment by moment. So
yeah,
I love that. Yeah, so good.
Yeah. But what do you have any moments where you can see, whether it's right now or picked out some moments from your past, of when you know that has held you back or has changed your decision?
Yeah, definitely. I think there was, do you know what? It was more just a feeling for me. It was more, this is probably my first like couple of years as a coach. I was doing all the things, I was like trying to make my business work, and I just had this underlying feeling that the reason it wasn't happening in the way I would hope that it would was because I was somehow just not good enough yet, not perfect enough yet, like not in alignment enough yet, all of those things. And so it wasn't necessarily, like big decisions or moments. It was more just this underlying like static for me. And the belief, the hope that one day when I reached this perfect state of continual alignment, that then life would flow more easily. And it would be, for me, it really manifested in looking at other people and projecting that onto them and being like, their life is perfect, their life is easy, they never struggle. And that gave me, it was weird because it gave me at the time a sense of hope. It gave me a sense of hope that I could have that and it was possible.
Yeah.
And the problem I see with that now is that that hope was actually, not a positive experience, which is a weird thing to say. Like, we kind of feel like hope is always a good thing, but I think faith is a great thing, right? Trust is a great thing, but hope for me has kind of become a different thing, because hope for me feels like trying to grasp something that isn't here right now. It's like a very future focused energy. And it's not true, right? Like, the people I was putting on the pedestals, the people I was saying their life is perfect, how do I know that? What by looking at their Instagram, which is a highlight reel? Like, no, of course they go through things. And what I'm playing with at the moment is trying to be a lot more honest about that with the people I work with my community online, and is saying, being really clear about that. And it, you know, initially that felt like a bit of a risk, right? Because I was like in this kind of scarcity mindset of, well, why would someone choose the coach who's saying, yeah, sometimes my life crumbles, sometimes I get sick, sometimes I feel like crap and I don't know what I'm doing. Why would they choose that coach over the coach who's saying, I have a 10-step plan that you can just follow and your life will be perfect? Like, that's so much more that speaks to the part of us that really wants that so much more clearly. But I just literally don't believe it anymore. And if you can show me someone who has a perfect life, then fine. But I right now don't believe it's possible. And even think about like great sages and think, think about Jesus. They'd be like, oh, this is like enlightened being, right? But like the suffering was real. Can't avoid that humanness. So, how about you?
I mean, yes, definitely. And I know, I'm questioning whether that was true hope for you, or whether it was, desperation. And I don't mean that negatively. I've been there myself, in that desperation of just wanting something that someone else is portraying that they have. And it's a hope that's like, it's a hope that's tainted, isn't it, with pain, because you're not there and you don't have the business that's working. So it's not like a pure hope. It's not like, I have joyful hope.
Yeah.
But yes. And and I think I relate this so closely to my experiences with the word alignment, because I particularly started to condense for me this feeling when I got into human design. And when I started researching human design and working with human design coaches and things like that, or at the very least consuming their content, because a lot of it is based around the idea of being in pure alignment for yourself. And it's all it's not like a one size fits all. So it's like a different trend. Like you have this sort of like one size fits all perfection trend of, your life can be wonderful and glorious. And then human design sort of makes you feel as though it's not a one size fits all perfection, unachievable, because it's tailored to you as an individual. And if you as an individual hit your individual criteria of perfection, then you can achieve alignment and everything in your life will flow and everything will feel good. And it really got me in, really made me feel as though if I was to check every box on that list, if I was to tick underline everything that I had to do, and you have a list with human design, you have a list of rights and wrongs and of things to go for and things not to do. So if I was to just do all the things on that list, I would reach alignment. And it became a very uncomfortable, painful experience for me when I just could not live up to those expectations. And then it became a failing that I could not even become myself. I could not become myself. Like when you come through the other side and you see the traps in that thinking and the clear spiral that it could send anyone on. And I know there are some people who have fantastically, amazingly positive experiences with human design, but it's just not something that I can vibe with, because it does send me on a bit of a spiral of ticking boxes and of trying to be the best, most aligned self that I can possibly be. And it's not enjoyable.
Oh my gosh, it literally like makes me cringe. Like I couldn't, when you were speaking then, I couldn't help but just need to put my hands over my face, because that idea of like, well, if you can just get every single center right. And the thing is, it keeps going, right? Initially, it's like, if you can just get your strategy and authority right, then you'll be good. Oh, but once you've got that down, then you can move on to your centers. And once you've got all 9 of them sorted out, then you can move to your gates, and then you can move to your circuitry, and then you can move to your all the PHS stuff, right? Like it just keeps going and going and going. And there's probably, like hundreds of like micro tweaks that you're being asked to make within that, which is, oh my gosh, it's just such hard work.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to, like, I enjoyed my time with human design, but I am complete with it as well, in the same way as you, for similar reasons. It started to feel more like a way to try and be more perfect, try and be more aligned, and that just started to feel like a lot of pressure, to the point where, gosh, I could go on a massive human design rant right now, but like try and pull it back. But even to the point where, as a projector with a manifesting generator fiance, the story is you can't sleep next to him every night.
Yes.
Right? Like it's getting to the point where I'm like, I need a separate bedroom from my partner who I adore.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell? It's just wild. And one of the good things about it, right, was it helped me to see like, an emptying out process. They talk about emptying out in human design, and that's been really useful for me, right? Like I take on a lot of stuff from people. That's part of my conditioning in this world. So emptying out was a good thing from that, but it doesn't outweigh the amount of pressure and conditioning that it gave me. It's crazy to me how human design is meant to be all about deconditioning, but actually through that process you were deeply conditioned by the system itself.
Yeah, absolutely. And it changed the way that I thought about people, changed the way that I thought about not just myself and whether I was living correctly, but about, if this person is a generator, then that means a certain thing, and it has a certain negative connotation for me because that's like an energy that I can't be in. And I noticed just how quickly I wanted to like find out these things about people. I wanted to know what their chart was. And then like without talking to them, without knowing them, without really speaking and connecting with the person, you can make wild assumptions about people. Did I ever tell you about there was a time when I discovered that someone had the exact same chart as me, like lines, gates, everything?
Vaguely remember this.
This kind of burst a bubble with human design for me, but I think this was when it started to unravel, because I was like really deep into it. I was consuming all that content all the time, and there was this one particular person who I followed who would do like chart analyses on their Instagram. They'd post a chart without anyone's name or anything like that, and then just like do a little rundown of the chart. And I knew I hadn't given this person my chart, but I saw it was exactly my chart. I literally took a screenshot of it and I compared all the lines and all the gates and everything, exactly the same. And I messaged them and I was like, oh my God, like, who is this person? And they were like, oh, it's this person. Like, I was quite friendly with them at the time. So, they weren't weird about being like, oh, it's this person, like, blah, blah, blah. And I said, that's exactly my chart. And she said, that has never happened before. Like, that's very strange. Like, I wonder what would happen if you two had met. I was just like, this is no longer individually mine, for a start. I mean, and I know people, the whole thing is based on your birth time. So people are born at the same time all the time, but they're not necessarily in the same place. I mean, they were American for a start, and I was born in England, and anyway, all of these things. And it just kind of was that little pinprick of light in the veil that it was like, I'm not sure this is exactly right. I've just taken this as gospel. And I take everything with a bit of a pinch of salt, or at least I do now. I love like the fascination of astrology and looking into human design and I've looked into gene keys. I've been I've looked into a lot of different things, and basically what I've come to the conclusion at the end of all of these different journeys is to take everything with a pinch of salt, and just to not believe, not take anything as gospel, because it becomes like religion. Like human design, it gets like this religious quality to it where you follow certain ways of doing things, even to the point of, these, you should, wear these colors, or you should do these, this is where you should spend your time, this is the type of home that you should live in. Like if you go deep into it, how it prescribes your entire life. And it stopped feeling good to me.
Yeah, of course, right? Because I guess at that level it is dogmatic, which is never going to feel good. And I see where you're going with it being like religion, because it is, right? Because again, it's a promise of, if you just do all these things and you believe these things and you become this, then you will reach heaven. Right, like that's basically the premise. It's just taken into something else. Decondition, and then you'll just live this flowy, happy life forever. And I mean, this is probably a topic for next time, but just to note here, this feels so related to my like breakup with personal development and self-help. Like I feel like we could talk about that for a whole hour, so maybe we'll just pin that for next time.
Well, to be honest, I mean, I'm happy to continue that conversation because I think it's very relevant for me. I mean, in terms of what I was going to bring up today, it was very much related, very close to being, because everything, like I have, as I was just saying, been gone through so many iterations of the type of business that I wanted, or the type of thing that I was interested in, or the type of the way that I wanted to live. And I just feel like all of these things seem to have somehow been delivered to me via Instagram. and a part of me knows that the way that I want to live my life, or the way the divine message that I want to hear, is not going to be delivered to me via Instagram. And I've noticed, because I'm, as I just mentioned, have just come out of a few weeks of being super stressed, super activated, and just at the complete edge of my threshold. And I know when I'm there, because I spend a lot of time on social media, it just becomes a numbing technique that I will just, and actually I only notice it after I've been spending a lot of time on social media, because the first thing, it becomes very automatic to just open social media, not even when I just pick up my phone, like when I'm doing anything. Like if I get a phone call and I'm chatting to someone, I always put people on loudspeaker if I'm in a private place. So, and then I'll go on social media whilst I'm talking to someone, or I'll do it whilst I'm watching something else, or I'll do it when my work phone, when instead of looking at a work email or something. It just becomes so automated, and I only notice it after I've come out of the worst of it, because it's just numb up to that point. And I am aware now that all of these things, all of the lessons that I have learned over the past few years, social media can be such an amazing tool for a lot of things. And of course, it is a very powerful method of people sharing their inspirations, sharing their joy, even sharing their creations. It's not inherently bad one way or the other. It's just a way of us communicating. But I'm taking everything that I'm learning. I'm taking, like, all of my lessons are coming from Instagram. or from something that someone has put on, or from, and it feels like inspiration, it feels like, I think there's been a lot said about, if you open your app and the thing that you see at the top, that's the message that you were meant to receive for that day or whatever. And I'm like, it's fucking Instagram. Like, if the message that I want to receive, or the message that is meant for me for that day, is going to come through, like, why would it come through on an app that then takes me 10 minutes to get off of it? Like, it keeps me scrolling for 10 minutes to even like think about the message. Like, it's just not, it's not the way I want to communicate with my God. So I'll take another form of communication, please. Can you call me instead? But yeah, so it's all just, part of this. And I realized, so this is convoluted, but all of the decisions that I've made about my business, all of the decisions that I've made about coaching, rightly or wrongly, things that I still believe or things that I've let go of, so many of them have come from Instagram. And I'm just no longer willing to be manipulated in that way anymore. And so I'm just curious about where inspirations or where business decisions might come from, or might be different if I was just to not. And I've cut down so many of I think we mentioned this on our last recording, cut down so many of the things that I thought were manipulating me, the things that were obviously changing my business decisions or altering the way, like, I removed people who I followed who were talking about human design all the time for the most part, because I didn't want to be influenced in that way anymore. But I haven't yet, replaced that method, or, there's still like a void there. I haven't replaced a method of inspiration other than to go out, obviously, and walk and be inspired by the world around me. I don't know where I'm really going with this, other than to say that it's just so influenced my decisions. And, we're talking at the moment about building businesses that are that have structure and foundations. I'm taking my coaching course because I wanted more accreditation. I wanted a framework to support my coaching more so than I had in the past. And these are all things that we're doing, I think, because we have been so manipulated and so influenced by social media that we no longer we couldn't feel our businesses, we couldn't feel ourselves. I speak for myself. I hope I'm not putting words in your mouth, but that's we're just not willing to move forward under those foundations anymore.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. It's so true. I am, because we're being conditioned all the time, right? Like, no matter where we are, as these body mind systems, it's just how we work, isn't it? We take information from the world around us and we filter it through our own perceptions, beliefs, pasts, everything, and then we make that mean something. And I think, yes, Instagram has been a big place of that process happening. And I was reminded, as you were speaking then, about like when I finished my coaching certification, just after I finished the training, I went to a brunch with other people who are part of the coaching school, plus other students, and in London. And I always remember at the time, like, I met this person who had been a coach for about a year and a half at the time, because the group that met were just like anyone who'd done that course could come. So you had people who were 5 years into their businesses, people like me who hadn't even started, like I just finished the course. And I remember this woman coming up to me, and, in hindsight, I can see that she was sort of targeting me as a potential client, because she came up to me and she was like, "Hi, like, are you new?" and having a chat. And then she was like, "Yeah, let's connect on Instagram." She was like, "What's your handle?" And I had an Instagram account at the time, but I didn't even know what my handle was. Like I didn't even know, because that was how small a role that it played in my life at the time before I was a coach.
Yeah.
And thinking about that now, it's crazy, right? If someone asked me my handle today, like of course I know what it is. And that is because I've been building a business on there, but it was just really curious to me. Like I think when you become a coach, there then comes after that this indoctrination about what you have to do online. And it's so, I mean, I'm like still unraveling that process now.
Yeah.
But something I realized recently is that when I'm on Instagram, the way that I'm using it, because my clients are often similar to me, right? In some ways, they're similar to me. So when I'm on Instagram, I am not actually looking for something real. I'm not really looking for something tangible. I'm kind of just looking to like kill time, be entertained. Oh, you're frozen for me. Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, I can hear you fine.
Oh, cool. Yeah, like I'm not really looking for anything real. And so as a business owner, I would much rather be connecting with people who are specifically looking for something. You know, I want to be connecting with people who actually want coaching, are looking for support, are seeking that out.
Yeah.
Not people who are just randomly, you know, trying to kill time or are addicted to their social media apps and dopamine hits. So it's actually, not only is it like unhelpful in terms of the influencing you were saying on the user side, like for me, it's even just totally untrue that Instagram is actually a viable business tool. I think it can be in connection with other things, but myself as a coach, I've been definitely sold the idea that I can run my whole business via an Instagram account. And even though people say things like, you know, don't rely on it, make sure you have a backup, like in case Instagram goes down, you know, people say things like that, but the overall story is like content calendars.
Well, how are you getting people to your backup? You know, if it's not through social media, like the same is true.
Yeah, it's just crazy. Like it's not even, it's not helpful for me either as a business owner or as a user. So
yeah,
my business is totally changing on that front, and I know yours is too. But yeah, it just doesn't. It's not real.
Yeah, it really raises the question for me about how and if it is possible to ethically market your business on social media, because basically what we're saying that it relies upon is taking someone from a state of consuming to making a buying decision based off of something that they've just, you know, scrolled past or consumed because they, you know, like your content, that they actively follow, like watch more of your things, that their algorithm, you know, is giving them a lot of your stuff because they like to consume it. So I'm just curious, and I don't know the answer to this question, but it's just like, is it actually ever really ethical to sell in that way? Because you have, I mean, all marketing is manipulation.
Yeah.
And so we've wrestled with this question for a long time now. And I've wrestled with this question, you know, since I did my marketing degree. But whether there really is any ethical means of marketing, because you have to take someone from one state to another via your content or via what you offer them.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I mean that the main really that I mean I'm so I can't get my words out because I get so confused about this question because the most ethical way of selling something is to not market it and for someone to just find it and be like, here you go, like, yes, this is exactly what I want. But you don't really run a business. Like, can you run a business that makes money without marketing? I don't know. I don't think so.
Yeah. Well, where I'm going with this at the moment, I think it's a really interesting conversation. It's like, because I totally agree with you, right? If you're trying to, this is why the word convert is so prolific on like Instagram and stuff, isn't it? Because if you're marketing on Instagram, then yes, you absolutely have to, there's a transitional conversion process from taking someone who is just scrolling, wanting to be entertained, to someone who is ready to purchase something from you. So totally. And the way I'm going is like, when I want to buy something, like let's say that my fridge freezer packs up and I want to buy a new one, I don't need someone to sell that to me. I just do some research on, I head straight to Google, or I look on reviews on Amazon or whatever, and then I find what I'm looking for and I buy it. And so like what I'm going to be exploring is how can it be that, right? How can it be that someone is specifically looking for a coach like me? And where would they go? Because I remember being in my corporate job and I considered hiring a life coach because I hated my job and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And at that time, I had no idea that this whole Instagram coach world existed. I was I didn't even know my handle. And let alone like was, involved in it to this level. But I thought that what coaching would be was a local person. It would be like therapy, right? I would find a local person to me in my hometown, and I would go and sit in person in a room with them. Obviously, the world has moved on since then. Like this was 7-8 years ago or something. So people are more aware of like online practices now. But, I'm thinking like the actual people I want to work with are probably people like that who wouldn't know to come onto Instagram and look for a very niche coach, like really, because that's what you have to do on Instagram, right? You have to get niche and niche and niche because there's so much competition. So it's going to be a totally different way. And this is this is all the shedding I've been doing recently, is just like realizing the indoctrination that's happened and seeing that maybe that is a different way. So for me, it's going to happen by blogging, I think. Good old-fashioned blogging with titles that people are actually searching for so there is no conversion in that. It's not the same, is it? Like if I'm searching for a fridge freezer and I find one and I buy it, no conversion has really happened.
No, the conversion would happen if you were searching for your fridge freezer and they were like, and you came upon something that said you cannot live without this fridge freezer, and in fact your life is getting worse and worse every second that you do not own this fridge freezer. That's like a panic response. That's like, okay, yes, I need to this has to be the fridge freezer that I buy. So there is, and it does depend, because I mean SEO has been sort of co-opted by people who are creating clickbait articles. And so even in the world of type something into Google and someone will come upon your stuff, you are still fighting against people who are going to say that their fridge freezer is the best in the entire world and someone else needs to buy it, or something that's like fridge freezer broke down in 10 days, like these kinds of things. So you're still fighting against that, and you're still, not that that's necessarily a bad thing, these things can mutually exist at the same time. You can be doing something from an ethical perspective while someone is still doing something unethically. Unethical marketing, I don't think is going away anytime soon. But yes, it's just it's such a big question for me about how you do it, or how I personally do it with feeling good about what I'm doing. So I wish people could just, walk past my door and see that there it says, life coaching services in the window. You're like, oh, great.
I mean, maybe there's something to that, right? Because just around the corner from me, and you've probably driven past this sign as well on the way to Henlow. There is a sign up, and it's been there for literally years. So this person obviously has an ongoing existing business there, like counselling services, and she has like a sign up just at the end of her garden on the road, and it says like Eagleford counselling services or something. So maybe there's something to that, but I think this is the cool thing, isn't it? When we get to that place where we go, this thing that I've been told is the only route is actually not, when there's that realization, then that opens the door to all this other possibility, all this like seeing and exploring and curiosity. And I think that in the past, I've really got bogged down in being like frustrated and upset about the fact that this didn't work, and sad and hurt that I was kind of guided that way by whoever.
And I think because it goes back to what we were saying at the beginning, because because it didn't work, it's your mismatch against alignment, or it's you're not reaching that perfection state.
I'm just not doing well enough at this. And if I just do it better and I sacrifice my health and energy even more, then eventually it makes no sense, right? But somehow to this system it did make sense at one point. So I spent a lot of time being like really upset about that, and I think that was a necessary process to go through. But now I'm feeling like excited and inspired and curious about what could be different. And one thing I think that is really underestimated is word of mouth. I'm at the point in my own life where I probably wouldn't work with a coach without someone who I trust telling me that they're a good coach. If I was looking to work with a coach right now, I would probably go to my friends and say, who's a great coach that you've worked with, tell me, because I just, that would be my way now. So of course that's because I'm in the coaching industry, I know to do that. But I have a client I've been working with for years, and I know that she talks to her friends about our work together. So I'm like, let's not underestimate these old-fashioned things, because coaching existed before the internet did. The coaching was happening prior to Instagram coaching happening.
Exactly. And was coaching is a separate thing from creating a multi-X figure business. Like I think that's the thing. Like the industry hasn't changed. The actual coaching industry at its core is still what we love and think of as a beautiful, necessary, worthwhile thing. What's not, and what is manipulative and uncomfortable, is the building multi-X figure coaching business in 10 days sort of industry. Because it's scam. It's a classic scam. It's such a classic scam. It's ridiculous. It's like the people with a briefcase saying, do you want to make £1 million in the next 4 weeks? How do we fall for it?
So true. It's become something totally different, hasn't it? And I was writing a blog post recently, and I wrote like, coaching is entirely separate from the business of coaching. Like these two things have been smashed together way too closely for my liking. And I think running a business is a whole different ballgame to coaching. And so I totally agree. And to be honest, I mean, this could go down a whole nother rabbit hole, but something I've been doing is working out like, but how much money do I actually want, need, desire? What would actually feel supportive?
Yeah.
Because we all just think like we just want more and more and more, right? But really, if we think about what would be beneficial and supportive to our lives, it's often so much less. I mean, for me, it's so much less than I thought it would be. So
yeah. And I think over and above that amount, the thing that gets missed is our social responsibility to re-input wealth into places where it's needed, you know. So this accumulation of more and more and more is benefiting no one, not even really the person who is getting more and more. But what would be incredibly beneficial is if you so happened to ethically market your way into a like intensely profitable business, that those profits get re-injected back into uplifting a community that doesn't have that injection of wealth. And that would be an amazing thing. That would be a beautiful thing that would to happen if, you know, you just so happen to be making 6-figure months. But it doesn't. Apparently what happens is we just buy more and more designer things and more cars, and then we sell business courses to teach other people how to make 6 figures a month.
Yeah, you can tell we're not bitter.
No, not at all. Not at all. Oh my gosh, all of this stuff is totally integrated, and I feel like, you know, totally unattached to this completely. Yeah, but that's the thing. I think we have had very bitter filled conversations about all these things. What we have now got to is a much more enjoyable place of acknowledging the bitterness and then saying, okay, what does this mean about how I want to run my business?
And to be able to laugh about it, you know, for a long time I really couldn't, because there's so much pain there for me. Like, you know, I felt, and just like, you know, if anyone does listen to this who's kind of still in that pain, like, it's all right to feel hurt, I think, by it, because I particularly felt really manipulated and so many things. So I think that, I mean, we're at the point where we're kind of like laughing at it and poking fun at it, and like I think that's great for, you know, for where we are. But I just know that there was a point where I was genuinely like very hurt by it. So just to acknowledge that.
Oh, definitely. And I think there is still pain there. There is still the loss of a dream or a hope, but actually, like you say, it is definitely becoming more of an inspirational fire, because we're just no longer willing for that to be the only route. And it looked really shiny when we were at the beginning of that road. And now we see it as not really a road that we want to go down at all.
No, and I think it, you know, it can just be a lot more simple, is what I'm getting to. Like, that kind of model, it is really complex, it's really tiring. It really asks so much of the people doing it and behind it. And, you know, I think that one thing we have to remember is that the people who are running these big businesses on Instagram, they have a team, you know, they have content creators, they have writers, they have social media managers, business managers. I think when you see that as an individual person, a one-woman business, and you're trying to match that, I mean, I know for sure this is why I've burned out so many times, by trying to emulate that kind of business without a team. So
and just even you know, the luxury, the privilege of wealth when you have it, because it's not just the fact that you're buying your designer stuff. You don't have to think about where rent is coming from. You know, me and my partner have just moved back in with Jason's parents. You're moving in with your parents. Like, you have to make decisions based on you know, and we're not underprivileged or poor by any means, and yet we still have to make decisions based on, okay, I can't afford to live in a certain way. can't afford the certain groceries sometimes that I want to buy, or I can't, I have to make different decisions. And then it's just a lot of your decision making capacity is taken up by non-business decisions. And then we wonder, why can't I come up with 17 Instagram posts for the week? Well, because I've just made 17 other decisions about my life and how I survive, and how I'm going to have a enjoyable relationship, about how I'm going to go to work, about whether or not I want to be doing my job. These are all valid responses. And it's not just because we're lazy or because we don't have the imagination or anything like that. It's real.
Yeah, I love this. And I think it links back to the very start of our conversation around like perfection as a coach, because that's another little tricky one in there, isn't it? Of like, you're not a good coach if you're not earning a certain amount of money. Yeah. And that connection between being a good coach and your income level is just so untrue. I've worked with coaches that were quite honestly really shit, and they were earning a lot of money. And I've worked with coaches who are not even in a full-time business, or they're just doing it on the side or whatever, and they're incredible at their craft. So I think that breaking down that idea of like how much you earn as a value statement of your work is just so untrue. Like there's so many things that lead into that, as we've said. So I mean, I was coaching people when I was in my corporate job. I didn't even have a business, and I would say I was a good coach even then, when I was earning no money for coaching. So exactly. Okay, do you have anything else that you feel like you want to share here?
No, we've done it again with our internal timekeeping capacity. We just hit the minute. Perfect. See, we've honed our craft.
So good.
Yeah, no, that feels good.
Amazing. Thank you.